Today I'm talking to Seth O'Byrne. Seth is a top agent with the top team, the O'Byrne team, at Pacific Sotheby's International Realty in San Diego, California. We talk for an hour and a half about the listing presentation, and he tells all. Seth gives perspective on exactly how he does it. What about his listing presentation makes him so undefeatable? Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast is to share knowledge for realtors and raise awareness for Give Back Homes, where real estate professionals work together for social good. Jet Centers Aviation, Bentley Atlanta, Legends Global, thank you for your sponsorship. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast, and today we have the infamous Seth O'Byrne back again from San Diego, California. He does over $100 million a year, top real estate agent with Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. Seth, thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to interview us and give me the opportunity to kind of chat about the things that we're doing down here in San Diego.
Well, thank you for being here. You've just arrived back in San Diego in your new home, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And you just from Idaho, because you have been on one of several trips where you've been hired by other agents in Sotheby's International Realty to assist in marketing properties. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. That's close to my heart is as you know, social media, digital marketing, video marketing for luxury real estate. Those are really the things that we really excel at and the things that I'm really passionate about. And I love them so much that even on the weekends or even in my free time, I'd love to have an opportunity to do more of it. And I've always dreamed of being able to fly over the country, use the Sotheby's model to meet other brokers in other key markets, see how they're marketing, share what we're doing here in San Diego, much in the same way that what we're doing right now, you know.
Exactly.
But you know, not just talk theory, but actually do real projects together. And so, you know, when I was with you at the global networking event and I was on the social media panel, I had a lot of people that came up at the end of it, and you know, some people really got it. Some people, weren't necessarily following 100% of that. Obviously, digital marketing is ahead of a lot of people's heads or above where they're at. But for those that got it, we instantly connected, and I have multiple cities lined up that I'll be flying for Sotheby's to those offices and collaborating on marketing projects on a national level. This one's the first real hardcore one that we did. It was 3 days on the ground in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, basically working with Tomlinson Sotheby's and one of their top agents. Her name is Karen Wickham. Karin Wickham. And Karin landed this unbelievable $8 million lakefront property. It has almost 300 feet of lake frontage, its own private beach.
Wow.
The property's almost 16,000 square feet, 3 separate structures. It was built during the Prohibition era, and so it has false walls, and the bookcase opens up, and then there's a place where you stored all the booze. You know, because I guess they're very wealthy mobsters. This is like 3 owners ago, but. And then the client who owned it and then now is selling it was a very successful businessman that went public, and he and his family have relocated to California. So when Karin gave me the call, she said, "Look, my broker of record out here in Tomlinson heard you speak, and she came home and she tried to explain everything that you were saying, and then we just said, you know what, I can't remember half of this. I don't even know how to do this. Why don't we just fly Seth out and let's just do it together." So they called me last Sunday, and I happened to have nothing going on this past weekend. And so, you know, they called me on Sunday. I was in a plane at LAX airport, you know,
That's
Friday
incredible.
And got in at 2 a.m. And yeah, we did video for 32 hours in 3 days, 32 hours of shooting.
Wow. And here you are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just got here about 15 minutes.
We're going to talk today, which taps in a little bit of what you've just done, but we're going to talk a lot about the listing presentation. You've been on the show a few times before, so we thought let's take advantage of our time today and really hone in on what that process is for you and what you do, you know, how, from the beginning, from the phone call to signing that listing agreement, and then the process is throughout the listing as you carry it. So I guess if you want to give us some history on how you came up with this, or if you just want to run with it and tell us what you do.
Yeah. So, just like any other real estate broker, I spent a lot of time studying scripts and getting to understand logical tie downs, getting to understand kind of, the flow of your listing presentation, open-ended questions, qualifying questions used as a way to obviously bring a seller or the potential client to a logical conclusion that aids your listing presentation and your hopefully your hope of getting that listing. And so I did that for a solid 4 or 5 years. And then I just threw it all out of the window. And I do it much differently now. There's definitely a structure to it. There's no doubt there's a pretty regimented structure to the listing presentation. But I don't really use scripts per se. Mm-hmm. I have, just like anybody does, I have a way I say things that make sense to me and I found have been very impactful for sellers. But and I know I said it on the show before, and I say it a lot anytime I speak and teach and try to help young agents, make their presentations better and become better brokers. I spent a lot of time trying to convince people that I was better. And I remember I asked my marketing director, I said, how do we get the market to think that we're better? How do we convince them through salesmanship, through marketing, through being belly to belly with people and saying all the right words? How do we convince people that we're better? And his response was extremely simple, and it was so elegant. He said, well, I think we have to just become better. And it was so, just like my brain just exploded. It was so simple. It was so easy. And so essentially what we've done is we've deconstructed the listing presentation and then put it back together where basically all I have to do is walk into that room and list every single thing that we're going to do to get that home marketed, negotiated, and sold. And so rather than the structure that we started with, which is, if you're, a Mike Ferryite or a Tom Ferry, I mean, are you looking to sell your home in 60 to 90 days? Would you be open to selling the property or pricing the property in a way that gets it to sell in 30 days? What are your greatest concerns? If it was listed before, you would ask, what do you think the seller did? What do you think the agent did well? And then what do you think the agent didn't perform well on, which is the reason why it didn't sell? So you're asking all these questions to kind of steer people in one direction. We take a different approach. I absolutely want to bore my clients stiff in my listing presentation. I want to go over pay-per-click campaigns. I want to go over, the intricacies of psychographic farming and demographic data gathering, how we go into market, how we use the market data that we get from social media and all the feedback we get in order to actually map out how we're going to strategize and pivot if we're not getting the results we need. I go deep into why we use twilight photography, color theory, videography, the types of cameras we use. And essentially, it works almost without fail. At some point, the sellers just throw their hands up and they go, all right, look, this is way above my head. You clearly know what you're doing. Take the listing. Like I got dinner. I got to pick up the kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, my question was, as you were saying that, I was like, okay, how long does that take?
A long time. So, and that's the purpose. So we want our clients and we want the brokerage community and we want people out there that are important in our business to know how much of a pain in the butt what we do is. And there's many reasons for this. It's not, there's some science to it. What I realized is I was becoming extremely knowledgeable about a niche in real estate. And that niche is specifically digital marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I became more and more and more proficient in it, what I really recognized is in my listing presentations, I was constantly leaning towards talking about digital marketing. And it was great for me, obviously, because digital marketing is the way of the future. It's probably the most effective way to sell a house is online, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody would argue that. But what I realized when I was going through the presentations is when people allowed me to kind of geek out and get deeper into details, it gave me an opportunity to show off how proficient I was in what I do for a living, but it also demonstrated in a very visible, tangible way in that room, in that living room, how much more knowledge I had about this specific tool than the clients that are sitting on the other side of the table. It's very similar. I remember when I was in my first year in real estate, my business partner Kiki and I, figured out that if we abbreviated all the names of the contracts in California, the purchase contract, the sales contract, the disclosure contracts, people would think we were really smart and we knew what we were talking about. And
did you really do that? That's great.
There's like a paradigm shift,
right?
Where if you can demonstrate knowledge that your client does not have, you clearly have just become psychologically an advisor, right?
Right.
People advise people when they know more than they do.
Right.
And so, whereas I used to run my listing presentation asking them all these questions that had a lot to do with motivation, I recognize people are calling me to come over to their home at 10 a.m. on a Saturday because they want to sell their house.
Right.
And they're probably calling me because they've already familiar with what we do. And furthermore, and this is something I'd love to get into with you, we don't go to listing presentations cold. They've already got a listing packet that's printed. They've already received an email with our videos that include our philosophy, our team, our dedication to architecture, our dedication to marketing, that kind of stuff. And so all I really need to do is go in there with my printed listing booklet and walk people through every single detail until the moment I see them yawning or looking at their watch. And once they start yawning and looking at their watch, though I used to be scared I was boring people, what I recognize is this stuff was just going over people's head.
Mm-hmm.
And my intent is not just to confuse them, right? I'm not trying to confuse my clients. I'm not a sadistic person, but more so I believe when you hire an expert, you want an expert to be an expert.
Exactly.
And so I'm not just like making stuff up. I'm going really deep into stuff so people can really recognize how intimate the knowledge is.
Well, I think because there's so many different approaches to this, there are the approaches of there are people who go and sit down and just have a conversation. They just, the seller already knows I'm good. I just want to talk to you. Just want to be sure I like you. You're hired. Now, I like that approach. It's easy, but the flip side of that is that I find, because I've taken that approach and I found that I was already hired before I ever did I never did a presentation. But on the flip side of that, the rapport, I was hired because I was liked and they knew I was good or they heard I was good, but they didn't really get to hear about everything I do. So now I've got the listing. Now I'm going through, I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all this, a lot of things I do that you do, the social media, the target marketing, and they've got no idea. And the Sotheby's platform, they don't know anything about. They've got no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So it becomes much more difficult to communicate with them. They've got to learn about everything you're doing before you can have that conversation about what often, not always, but often is a price conversation that you can't get them to quickly enough before they've already shot themselves in the foot and too much time has gone by. Or they've started interviewing other agents because you didn't do them and yourself the favor to teach them about what you do. Would you?
Absolutely. And I actually don't bring comps to listing presentations. That's probably something worth diving into.
Yes. So how about this? Start from the phone call. So
okay, sure. So most of our business is referrals at this point. We do use testimonial based marketing, Yelp, LinkedIn, Google Plus, that kind of stuff. So we do get some flow there, but for the most part, lion's share of our business is referrals. And so if it's a past client, it's basically in the bag. That's not the hard one. I'd focus on the one that's a referral of a past client or referral of a friend, right? So, we get the call, hey, Seth, you're looking to sell your house. The pointed questions I ask, up front are, what are the things that you love about the home? Can you play Realtor for a little bit and just tell me the things that just sell me on it, right? Sell me on these great things. Because I'd really love to go there and be.
And this is on the phone. This is on the phone. This is on the phone. This is great. Okay.
This is on the phone. So, I'd really like to be cognizant of those things. So if your property has amazing architecture, I want to come prepared to talk about architecture. If your home has amazing amenities like tennis courts and places for, horses and equestrian, I want to come ready to talk about equestrian marketing and how that's different, right? So I want to understand the details. Bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage, I don't really care about. It doesn't matter. I don't sell bedrooms and bathrooms. I sell lifestyle, right? And so for I'm not Home Depot. So for me, I see my job as a real estate salesperson more so to convince the market to fall in love with something. So I want to know what they love, right? I do ask them what they believe the value is, because obviously that's an important tool when you're trying to figure out how to communicate with the seller. It's also important too, because you've been there too. I've been over $1 million off on some of these listings. I recently went on a listing in La Jolla, and I didn't ask the question in a pointed enough manner. I was at $3 million. The developer was at $7 million. We were that far off.
Wow.
And there were comps. This wasn't a rarefied product here, right? So anyways, I asked the question, what do you love about it? What do you think the value is? And then obviously, timeline, right? So, when would you like to sell? What's your motivation for selling? That kind of stuff. And then I keep it pretty light. That's about it. I do always take every opportunity I can to brag about what we do and how we do it. I am constantly bragging. In the classiest way that you possibly can. You're still bragging. It's not incredibly classy, but at least it's the best you can.
Well, if you don't tell them, the other people obviously are going to, but you can articulate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So essentially, the key to the email ahead of the meeting is twofold. Now, one is specific to us. We're a digital marketing company, right? So most of our content is seen much better in an email with links than it would be in a printed format, right? So we create the printed listing presentation, but it has a hard time of really showcasing what we do. So it's mostly made up of links of videos. We've written the stock part of it, which is, hello, welcome to the O'Byrne team. Thank you so much for an opportunity to serve you and sell your home, blah, 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 right? Then you go into the details of what you're going to show people. Now, if we discovered in that phone conversation that this property, in fact, is an architectural home, and say the husband or the wife has a knack for interior design, well, we have videos already that we've made about us with the architectural expert here at Sotheby's, talking about our love for architecture and all the architectural properties that we've been involved with and why we love architecture. And then the second video is going to be our dedication to interior design, and we're going to talk about feng shui, we're going to talk about color theory, we're going to talk about cross light, and so these videos, our video library ends up being the silver bullets that just makes our chances of getting these listings.
So by the time you get there, you've won the business anyway.
Exactly.
But you still got more to say, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've got multiple different videos, right? So the about us, here's our philosophy, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the obvious thing. They're not going to watch most of them. So you got to put the one that you think is the most appropriate as the first link. Some people. Question
in that email, you email them looking forward to meeting you. You elaborate so that they've clearly heard what you've said. If architecture is important, that's what's in the email. Now, when does anything about the market or the state of the market come into play at all in that email?
No.
Okay, at all.
No.
Like you don't even mention it.
No. Okay. Exactly. So I believe this strongly, and I always say you cannot hire the weather. You can only hire a captain, right?
You cannot hire the weather. You can only hire a captain. Isaac, write that down.
And so there are forces of nature that are outside of us in the real estate market. In fact, a lot of what we're trying to do, in my opinion, is bottle lightning, right? We don't know. It's an unpredictable thing, the real estate market, and so. Especially with what we do, which is, luxury real estate, these properties, their sales prices are not always based on comps. They're based on how much someone wants something or how much the market doesn't care about it, right? I mean, we've got plenty of multi-million-dollar properties that have a really hard time selling. That's the reality. That's part of the mixed bag of what we do. And so what I tell people, and it helps me explain to them why I don't talk about comps in the listing appointment, is when I sit down with people, I go, look, I just want to get this out of the bag. I just want to get the cat out of the bag. I didn't bring comps. And it's not because I didn't forget. It's because that's not how I work. You and I are going to, we're going out to the dock together. We're getting in the boat together. And my job is to be the best captain ever. Now, a squall could hit us, right? The wind could go crazy. The waves could be 20 feet tall, or it could be a beautiful day with light winds and a very pleasant sail, right? We have an idea when we go into a listing appointment of what that property is going to be like and how hard it's going to be to sell, just like anybody else that's a good broker. But we don't know for sure until we're really doing it. And so what I believe is the listing appointment is an appointment to see whether or not that person really thinks we're the right captain for their boat. And so I much prefer to get down and dirty in how we work, the philosophy of how we work, and the nuts and bolts of how we work. Choosing the price, I believe, is part of the marketing strategy. A lot of people go, marketing's here and price is here. But marketing is just one. Like these are all these things, you got digital, print, broker networking, consumer direct marketing, pricing is one of them. And so in my personal opinion, why my listing appointment closing ratio has been so much higher in these last few years is I stopped letting price get in between me and the client. And I believe strongly that, all of us have been coached the opposite, that you need to make sure they're realistic sellers. You need to make sure that the price makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree with that. But if you know that their motivation is to sell the property and you know they have equity available and you know that they're actually motivated and dedicated to get it sold, if we start high, we start high. If we start low and try to create a bidding war, so be it. Really, I believe my job is to not only advise, but also do my clients' bidding. I work for them. And so if the property is really worth $2.5 million and they just go, Seth, I still want to list it for $3.2 million and see what the market does, that's a marketing decision. You want to test the market. And so I believe very strongly that if we have great rapport, if they know how hard I work, if I know that they're motivated and our interests are aligned, then we can list it for 3.2 because we're going to remain friends in 30 days if it doesn't sell, and we're going to reduce it down to 2.5, and then we're going to sell it immediately, and then we're all going to high five and go out to dinner.
And you might get lucky every once in a while. You might get lucky. I mean, we all get lucky. I've had listings where I was like, never will this happen, and it happens. And other listings, you're like, and I tell my clients too. I mean, your analogy is the best. Yeah. But it's like, hey, I mean, there are listings that people put on, and they're like, this is going to sell next week, and 2 years later, they're on the market because you don't know what's to come. Exactly. You said sometimes the market doesn't care.
That's absolutely right. And I guess my feeling is not that every broker needs to not talk about comps in the listing appointment, right? There is something incredibly frustrating for a seller, for an agent to walk into the appointment and not talk about the one thing that they want to talk about the most. And
so how do you address that? Because you have such market knowledge, but go ahead, keep us going. You walk me through it. Through this process.
Absolutely. So, hey, back to kind of the shtick. Hey, I came in here today and I'm going to talk about marketing. I'm going to talk about strategy. I'm going to talk about the general market. I'm going to talk about your neighborhood. Today is not a day to pick the price. You don't pick the price the first day you meet. And furthermore, most of the properties that we're taking listings on, we're either requiring or requesting that our clients do significant market preparation. So if it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get the property on the market, it will be a different market by the time we're on the market. Mm-hmm. And so, for those sellers that say, Seth, I need it on the market tomorrow. Okay, sure, we're going to talk about comps. But for most of the properties where we're going to do staging, painting, carpet, landscaping, all that stuff, decluttering, and we're a few months out, I like to just talk in general ranges. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as someone who's trying to win a job, not letting price get in the way of not allowing price to be something that offends the seller up front does give me a better chance of getting a listing. That's true. That's fair. But I believe in a stronger way that when you sit down and you meet with that person and you decide you just really like each other and you just mm-hmm. really see eye to eye, you can do anything in the world with someone who you like, right?
And when you built that rapport with the client, they're going to listen to you.
Yes.
If you overprice it and it doesn't work and you maintain rapport, they're going to listen. If you don't,
absolutely.
I do talk about seller's amnesia. It's a real thing, but there are things that we can do to get around that, because there's also real estate amnesia, like keeping in real estate agent, like keeping in touch with your client, communicating, saying the difficult things now that they might need to hear about the market, and making sure they do. Like back to what you said, is they understand from that listing presentation what you're doing. So the phone call happens, you have a nice conversation on the phone, they're selling the house to you, that gives you perspective. You shoot out the email. You basically relay, this is who we are, what we do, and show them alignment with that you've heard them and how you align with them. Then you show up for the appointment. Now, when you show up for the appointment, you walk in the door. Is there a home tour first? Do you sit down and go over the listing book, listing present? I mean, how does that walk us through? You're walking into my home, Seth. What are we going to do? What are you going to say to me?
Let's do
Welcome to my home.
I walk into that big 11-foot door in your circular driveway with the fountains and stuff like that.
Right.
I take the free puppy from one of the assistants and I take the free margarita waiting for me. So I walk into that listing appointment. And yes, the first thing I say is I kind of go back to, hey, pretend you're the real estate agent. Just walk me through the house. Show me the things you love. Show me the things that you're a little like self-conscious about that you think we should do something about that could hold up a sale. Walk me through this step by step, right? So when they walk me through the property, I use that as an opportunity to really dig deep on the property itself, right? So I start asking a lot of qualified questions that are really important. So, oh, wow, like I see you have concrete countertops. That's really unusual. What led you to make that decision and what do you love about it? And so I let them kind of talk about the things that are great about a house. I am one of these weird people that really believes that what you put into a house is going to strongly affect the sales price. Mm-hmm. Some agents think it's just all price per square foot. I have found in the luxury market,
I couldn't agree with you more. Mm-hmm.
It really matters, right?
And it really matters.
If you have $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 million, you are buying an experience. You know, like I bought it. You know, my second Panamera, I paid an enormous amount more just because I wanted different stitching on the seats. I didn't look at the Kelley Blue Book. I knew I wanted it. And now I don't have that kind of money to buy real estate in that fashion, but our clients do. And so. You know, those little details really matter. So I like to dig deep into the details. What I don't do is point out obvious things. I think that really like belittles kind of the eloquence of our industry. I don't go, oh, I see that you have a wall sconce there. You know, like I'm not going to point out dummy stuff.
But that is such a common.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time when I have listings and I try to just let the buyer see, and then the buyer's agent takes over and talks about the sconces on the wall, and I'm like, in the fireplace in the master suite, I'm like, are you kidding me? They can see that. Let them experience it. But that's a whole nother. Shin Schultz has a great interview, by the way, on that, everybody. Really? Oh my God, a great interview on not doing that and why. But back to just relating to what you're saying. So they give you the tour, do the tour of the house.
Yep.
They tell you that, so you're really giving them a chance to express themselves. So you can align with them. It's kind of like, listen to them, and they'll tell you what. There's so much we can tell them. Yeah. But this gives you a chance to really understand where they are and what their needs are. So you go through that. At that point, sit down, or what happens next?
Absolutely. And I think there's an important nuance difference between letting questions run a meeting. When you do ask questions, yes, you are in control. You are steering the meeting. But the difference between, I think, the MFO, like the Mike Ferry organization style questions, those are used specifically to get you to your goal of getting the listing.
And to your goal as a listing agent.
And that's exactly right. It's a very self-serving way to use using qualified questions. I'm asking qualified questions because I actually want to know about the house. If my job is to market the house, I need to know what makes it special. And I find that saying that a home is special and talking about the special things is value in and of itself. The end buyer might not care about the bidets, but the fact that the seller went to the trouble to put bidets in this property might actually impress a seller, or a buyer. I mean, how many times do you sell properties with elevators and the sellers think that it's the greatest thing ever, but they haven't used it in 20 years. And the buyers think it's really cool because they can tell people at cocktail parties they have an elevator, but they're never going to
use it either. You're exactly
never going
right.
to use it either. So it's good to know. I don't always think that every amenity has to have an obvious purpose and be totally usable. There is, again, in luxury real estate, there's some things that you just kind of want, like I paid 10 grand more for my car because I have yellow calipers on it. You know what I mean? And the stitching is even more. And just
what are you going to do with that stitching, Seth? But you're going to know you have it, and you're going to look at it, and it's going to be
exactly.
Pretty.
I'm going to go, hey, I made it in life. I got the cool stitching.
Right? Exactly.
I'm going to call my mom. Hey, I got the stitching. So anyways, so I like the questions to guide, understanding the property. Now, of course, I'm going to use what they said to touch back to it in my listing presentation, and I'm going to use those to start emphasizing how we're going to market the property. Right? Mm-hmm. If there's an amazing pool that has a lot of history. Or has a cool aesthetic, maybe in the pool or maybe in the videos, in the photos, we're really going to showcase that pool. Maybe in our text, we're going to write a lot about that crazy pool and the grotto features and the architecture. If it was home of the year, we're going to talk about that. If it was a famous architect, we're going to dive deep into that. We're going to interview the architect on the video talking about the property. If it was historic, maybe we bring a local historian in and we have them talk about it. So while I'm asking these questions, I'm starting to understand key qualities about the property that are its unique selling features. I'm gathering data in my head for later when we sit down at the kitchen table, what we're really going to dive into. Mm-hmm. Craig Sewing, who runs a local TV show here now, and he's now gone national, opening up this real estate TV show. in major markets all over the country.
Oh, wow.
He taught me a term, which was not his term, but it was a term that stuck in my head, which is passion beats content. And
passion beats content.
And the simplified version of what that means, to me at least, how I understand that saying is, if you're really crazy excited, people are going to be excited that you're excited. And what's even crazier is if you're excited about their thing, whether it's their house, their car, their luxury goods, their art, everyone wants an advisor who loves their house. But you can't BS it, right? We all know these agents that'll walk through a house and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you have granite countertops." "Oh my God, I can't believe this is Sub-Zero." It's just like, ugh. It's like if they have
Don't forget the sconces.
Oh my God,
don't forget the sconces.
And they have little cherubs, like little naked kids on them. It's amazing. Look at them. And so I think the thing is you need to start building excitement over things that the sellers know about the property that they're excited about. And by the way, I'm not pandering to them and talking about things that they love. They know the house better than me. They've been living in it for 20 years. I've been there for 10 minutes. So for me, I really value what the sellers love about the property. They more than anyone know why that house is great. So I started obviously building out that marketing profile. And then also when we understand the key features and I really understand the aesthetics that create the qualitative part of the value, right? Quantitative, price per square foot, qualitative, high ceilings, cool leather walls, like the crazy stuff that makes a house more valuable just because it looks cool. When you understand the qualitative aspect of it, when you sit down for that meeting and you think it's worth $2.5 million and they think it's worth $3.2 million, you have some data in the back of your head to go, all right, is this worth $700,000 in difference? Like, are the naked cherub babies on the sconces like
really
actually
right?
Right? And so anyways, so we walk the property, we sit down, I give them the big reveal that I'm not going to talk about the exact price. I'm going to give them ranges and we're going to talk in generalities, but I didn't bring comps.
Well, and two, but that is an opportunity to talk about the market in general. Like, this is the state of the market. In these price ranges, this is what the market's doing. So they can resolve and start taking that price a lot more serious when you get to it. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're
I couldn't
totally
resist
right.
that. So
no, this is great, and I thirst for our collaboration. Like, I love it.
Oh, good, okay. Because I want to let you go, but So go, yeah.
I'm gonna blather on anyway. So sit down, and essentially, what I've done is tried to leave trails of success all throughout my listing booklet. And then I've tried to lead, I tried to logically walk people through the booklet. And what it allows me to do, if I went out the night before and didn't get enough sleep, if I didn't eat enough food before I went in there, if I had to pee the whole time during the listing appointment, if I was flustered and late and I got a big repair request, if my brain wasn't perfect that day, I have a listing booklet that is so paint by numbers, it makes it possible for me to be at 100% even if I'm not at 100%. And that's an important part. I think someone who goes in blind with a couple of pieces of paper stapled together without a clear written plan of how you're going to get through this meeting, you're just putting a lot of weight on your ability to be dynamic.
Now, I have a question for you. So, because I have a little bit of what you have. I have a basic presentation that I give them. And it's the same thing, though. I mean, but it's the same thing, but every seller's different and every property's different. So what is your formula? Obviously, you meet them. They are heard on the phone before you ever meet them. I'm sure they get a pre-listing package. Do they get a pre-listing package from you?
They do. The pre-listing package actually is my listing booklet.
Okay.
So,
and then they have that when you show up. So you deliver the listing booklet, you show up, they give you a tour of the home, and you don't talk about their fireplaces and their naked babies and their sconces.
Yeah.
But anyway, you get to the table. So now it's time. They've got the listing booklet, but of course they've already felt special because you've let them speak to the property, which has educated
exactly
you.
Right.
But do you have anything else? I have so many different people. Obviously, I've heard a lot about.
Yeah.
At that point, is there anything you do? I guess what you're going to do to differentiate is what you've just absorbed in the tour. That's what you're going to say as you take them through that listing booklet. Is that right?
And my listing booklet has an entire page just dedicated to photography. It has an entire page just dedicated to videography. It has an entire page just dedicated. These are giant pages. This is 13, 17 by 13 inch pages that are specifically focused on topics that commonly come up. And so there's tons of pages in there that aren't going to relate to that particular property, right? If it's a studio condo, we're not going to do a video for it, right? You can't do a video of a place that's one room, right? So, but and so there's lots of detail. There's an entire page dedicated towards Matterport. But if the property is a beautiful home, but it's a fixer, we're not going to do a Matterport. We're going to take photos that are the best that we can get of the best angles of the best rooms that are still intact, and we're not going to show anything else. And so,
and do you touch on that when you go through the listing book? Like, this is Matterport, we're going to do this or not do this because of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important too. I think everyone sells differently, right? And so for me, I'm selling myself as a marketing partner. I'm not selling myself as the person that goes to every kickball game and knows everybody in the neighborhood. That's not my brand identity. And so, I don't try to go be all these things to everybody. And oh, you like lacrosse? Let me tell you a story that I have about lacrosse. Oh, you have a cat? I've touched a cat once. Like, I don't pander to people and try to be everything to them. Right. I just go in and I know what I am, and I just try to be the best at it as I can be. And what I think is really amazing is so many of these agents that struggle with this are like, I need to be able to do everything all at once and impress everybody. The reality is there's a million different ways to do our job.
Well, and there's two things about that. Number one, you don't have to have that much market share, even in Atlanta. I mean, San Diego is a much bigger market as far as price goes. But even in Atlanta, I'm like, you don't have to have that much market share to be a top agent. You just don't need that much. Just everybody has this perception that they've got to go be everybody's friend and win the business of everybody they know, which, not that we don't all aspire to that on some level, but on the real level, if you just be really good at what you're doing and attract the best clients, you're going to have the best business of anybody. Now, I want to elaborate on something else you said, just for our listeners. You talked about that listing presentation, and we talked about what I love about it is your listing book covers everything, and you show it all the way down to the one-room studio condo. Yep. But what's great about that is that when you're doing that, you're not going to do Matterport, or you're not going to do a video for certain properties, but you're still educating that potential customer or future customer on what you do, so that their friends that have the big mansion or their friends that have another property, they are educated, and they are provided the opportunity, even if not consciously, to make sure they refer you business.
That's exactly
great.
Right.
So
that's exactly. And our booklet, by the way, it reads more like a behind the scenes booklet. So we've got photos of us working with the video team. We've got photos of us putting furniture in property with our stagers and looking at colors and trying to figure out how to tie a room together. We've got photos of me with giant TV cameras and me going on TV in front of our house with a microphone talking about a property. So essentially, we're trying to create a little bit of fame around us, but we're also, pictures and videos make it real. And when you put it in print, it's real.
When people
and
see
so if
it.
I sit here and I tell a seller, and that's why the booklet is so important. If I sit here and I tell a seller, oh, I'm going to stage your property, well, that's one thing, right? If I go, I'm going to stage your property, here's a page showing you photos of me staging all these beautiful properties and my feelings on properties. There's a quote from me about staging that makes me seem really, literate in what I do. It makes it so much more real, and it makes it so much more impactful. So that's really the art of it, is walking people through it so that they can kind of almost like $1 million listing. They can see what you do every day and appreciate how much you put into it. And typically the effect I get in our book is very long and very detailed, but typically by the end, by the time I turn over the cover and we look at the marketing checklist and then we're done, sellers are like, wow, I had no clue that much went into this. This is crazy. You guys, I don't even know how you find time in the day. And when people start saying things like that, all I can hear in my head is, okay, we're getting this listing. That's it.
And they get it, and they're going to be a good client. Because sometimes we're interviewing them to see if we really want to take them. But if you can develop that relationship and that affluence for them to understand what we actually do, they're going to be in the place, or they're 99% more likely to be in the place that they will be a good client. that you do want, whereas they may not have if they hadn't been educated in that way.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to your point that you said earlier, is not trying to be everything to everybody, and how you can do well, even if you have a small market share. If you're trying to be all these things to get the listing, what's going to happen is once you get the listing, then they're going to expect you to be those things that you're really not. And that's where I think this mismanagement of expectations starts really turning your career into kind of like a little bit of a nightmare, or at least like a train wreck, because you're running around. You know, I had this happen to me a couple of days ago. I got a phone call from an agent here in San Diego, and he goes, you know, I hear you teach a lot on social media marketing. And he goes, I need to understand social media marketing immediately. And I go, why? And he goes, well, I just got this listing in Rancho Santa Fe for $4 million, telling them that I was going to do all the social media marketing. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can, you know what? I'm happy to help you. You know, I mean, he's a competitor of mine, but I still wanted to help. And I go, okay, I can help. Absolutely. And I go, well, what do you currently do for Facebook? You know, what's your acuity? And he goes, well, I'm not on Facebook. And I'm like,
no.
I go, dude, the stuff that I'm doing took me a decade to learn. I don't think you're going to learn it in like a few days. Like, you know, he basically just shoved himself into a giant hole here. And, you know, what I think happens is when you mismanage those expectations, even though you want the commission, you want the listing, you want the deal, you want to grow your business, if you put that stuff out there, it is so complicated we've all been there. You've overpromised, and it's so hard to unravel that. And so, you know, why I don't talk a lot about print marketing is it's not a big part of my business. You know,
exactly.
it's not an important part. I don't talk about radio marketing because I don't do it. And quite frankly, I don't talk about open houses because they don't really work here in San Diego anymore. And so I just don't talk about things that I don't do. When they come up, obviously we have an educated conversation about it, but that's it.
That's great. So back to your listing presentation. So obviously you take them through the book. You talk about, you go through the different things that are relevant to their listing. You have the opportunity for them to see all the things that you will do for their friend's listing that might not work for their listing, which I think is brilliant. And it's all, the great thing is it's like, you got a listing appointment, you got a book, they get the book, you show up and you listen. And a big thing, I love what you said earlier about, I have this really big thing about, I'm sure you've heard about, I've got this workshop that's going on in my office and everybody's showing up at 7:30 in the morning. I need to take pictures. It's the greatest thing ever. But a big thing we talk about is stop scripting and start listening. Stop scripting. Stop. The only script I have for you that's good is when your client's talking, be quiet. And if they stop talking, say, tell me more. Or what else? That's about it. That's about all I got for you. Especially if they're emotional and they're on a rant and they stop, it's because they're afraid they're about to go over the edge, and they probably need to, because then they'll come back up. But that's not even the list. That may be the listing period. So anyway, you go through that, you go through the book. Now, once you've gone through all of that process in the book and shown them what you do, how do you close out the meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, well, first, before I say that, the market's going to come up. Do you have a part of your book, or is that a conversation after you've gone through it where you do discuss, like, here's the state of the market right now in this neighborhood, in this, you're not talking price, but you're going to educate them a little bit. Does that part of the book, or is that, where does that come in?
We don't talk about pricing or the market in the book itself, but the books are pre-sophisticated. They're pre-made. We order them 50 at a time. So we don't customize the book. If we do bring additional information that's customized to the meeting, we can go over that. But yeah, we talk about, you know, the seasonal and the cyclical market, right? You know, every 7 years, the market peaks and valleys. When rates go up, typically prices come down. High-end markets are more about stock market rallies. When the stock market's solid, people are buying luxury goods, including luxury real estate.
The things they already know, right? Which is good, right?
Exactly. And then, you know, this typical seasonal market. Now, San Diego doesn't have the same seasonality. We still peak in the June and we still valley in January, but it's nowhere near like other markets because we don't have snow, right? We don't have really cold weather.
And so what about you get through that, and then after I talk a little bit about average market time. I talk a little bit about absorption rates and list price to sales price ratios, and you know, and pricing strategy. You know, do you price low and get multiple offers? Do you price right on the nose and try to sell it in 30-day pricing? Do you go high and then allow the market to talk you down? But it's back to what you said. That's part of your marketing.
That's exactly right. And the other thing is I never really go, this is what your house is going to sell for. And I know why, because I'm an expert. Because that conversation is typically the second conversation. And I believe very strongly that as an agent, I believe that properties are valuable within ranges, especially in luxury real estate. Mm-hmm. So, if the property ends up selling for 2.25 million, and I go in that meeting, I go, the property is probably somewhere between 1.9 and 2.5, somewhere in that range. Let's talk about how we're going to get this property sold. Let's talk generalities. Then I'm going to, after having walked through this property, I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to dig into the comps and I'm going to give you my best assessment of what it's worth. Mm-hmm. And I just love it because it keeps the listing meeting pure. It's pure. It's about two people trying to, or, seller and client, agent and seller trying to forge a relationship. It's about the amazing attributes of the property. It's about our incredible marketing campaign. It's all exciting. It's all positive energy. And then we leave it and we're hugs and handshakes and petting the dog and then we're out of there. And then we deliver the information, but we deliver it in a really sophisticated written form, right? So I have a quantitative part of the analysis. I have a qualitative part of the analysis. I have if we put it on the market right now, here's what we predict in 6 months analysis. So we do go deep. Don't get me wrong. We don't skirt the conversation. I always have felt like price has muddied the conversation. Price and commission just always muddy the conversation. So for me, I'd always wondered what I could do to make them less of the conversation. And then one day I literally was late to a listing appointment. I just showed up with no comps. And I just said, I'm not bringing comps. I'm sorry. I'm just here to talk about marketing. And
I gotta do that again.
And it worked amazing. And I'm like, I think my screw up might have taken me down a path. I never had the guts to just not bring comps into a meeting. And I finally did it. And I cannot tell you how much different it is when you don't bring comps into a meeting. And again, you have to be sensitive that there will be some sellers that are going to be like, what the hell? I'm hiring you to tell me what the house is worth. And so you can't say, I'm never going to talk about comps. And you, the seller.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I get it.
Yeah.
So when you leave the listing appointment, how do you close it out?
Oh, sorry. You asked me a question and then I went on a
that's
circle.
All right. It's good stuff.
This is me traveling since 4 a.m. brain.
This is you on a listing appointment after Idaho, except you have no book to carry you through.
Oh my God, jeez. And so usually how I like to close, I go, hey, when would you like to get the property on the market? They say next month. I go, okay, cool. Should I send the paperwork over? And that's where I leave it. I don't do hard closes. I don't bring my listing contract into appointments either.
Oh, I don't do that. Yeah. That could be a mistake.
I think it's a huge mistake. Now, lower price properties, different demographics, different clients, different psychographic profiles. Sure, that works, right? Mm-hmm. If I go in for a 1-bedroom listing, I might bring in a listing paperwork and comps. We know what it's going to sell for because there's 20 of them that sold for the same price.
Exactly.
We might just get it done right there. But number one, we're a paperless office, so we use DocuSign anyways. And number two, we're not there to close people. Like our whole thing is we provide all of this value. If I don't close people, I don't go, was I a good salesman? I go, what do I need to put back in that book? Like, it's just, we're marketers. We're not salespeople. Like we just don't think like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I thought like that for a decade. And then I just said, I'm tired of being a salesperson. I'm tired of asking these stupid questions to try to get people to come to my results. Let me kick ass. Let me show people how I kick ass. Let me show people how all of our competitors are not doing any of the stuff that we're doing. And then people that are smart will logically hire us. And then people who don't see value in what we do won't be our clients. But the beauty of it is, well, for number one, we can't even take all the listings that we go on.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can't. We go crazy. I would never get time off. And then number two, the clients that don't see the value, that don't hire you, those are the people you shouldn't have gotten into bed with anyways.
Exactly.
So for me, it's weird. I'm really obsessive compulsive over becoming better. I'm way less obsessive compulsive over like selling the client. Like my energy is spent towards creating more value. And I have to tell you, it makes a lot of sense. Like the iPhone was clearly a better phone when it came out. Like it clearly was a better phone. We didn't buy it because we thought Steve Jobs looked cool in a turtleneck or he was really good at talking.
That's for sure. Right.
Yeah. I know it looked terrible.
It's a really good phone. You're exactly right. Yeah.
It's a damn good product. So Steve Jobs didn't go like, how am I going to sell people on how I'm going to create the next flip phone? He's like, no, I'm going to make the entire thing a touchscreen.
And he was just obsessed with making it awesome. And one of his biggest quotes is, don't sell crap. Like, if you come up with something and put it, no crap. Just don't sell crap. Just don't put crap out there just for the sake of selling something. Because in the long run, it's going to hurt you. In the long run, it's not going to pay off. So
yeah, absolutely. And I spent a lot of my career not knowing any better. And so I spent a lot of my career doing what a lot of agents do, which is never focus on what you do in your business to get properties sold. Just focus on selling how what you do is okay. So, open houses. Well, you don't want to do open houses because you want to sit on the beach. So you tell people that open houses don't work. You don't do print marketing because you don't have the budget. So you tell people print marketing doesn't work. You don't know how to do a video. So you tell people videos don't work. I instead was like, no, I need to do the hard work. I need to actually become great at all these things. And my listing presentation is me just showcasing that I am the best at it. Right. And now the best at it that I can be. I'm not saying better than anybody else, but the best at it that I can be. And it is so powerful that when you get, it's like a restaurant. If you give people good food, you're going to be a successful restaurant. Right. Yeah. No, if you make crappy food, you're probably going to fold. The product is the most important thing. And I think when it's such a paradigm shift to go from the 80s and the 90s of trying to sell your way into listings and then convince your clients why the property was, priced too high in the beginning and then not talk them down to another price. Instead, what about this crazy idea that like we create this incredibly robust marketing campaign that really convinces people to buy what we have? We convince our sellers to spend all this money to get the property looking beautiful, so the photos look great and the showings are stunning. And then we price it reasonably to get the property sold in a reasonable amount of time. So we still like each other by the time it's in escrow. And like, that's crazy. Right. But it's like, and it's, I tell people all the time in my listing appointments, because, I dress up a lot for my appointments. I go, do you see these cufflinks? They're like, yeah, I see the cufflinks. I'm like, you see this tie and this weird knot? I'm like, yeah. Where is this guy going with this? See how like my socks match my handkerchief? I'm like, yeah. Do you know how much of a pain in the ass it is to be me and put all these clothes on call these clothes on for a 1 hour meeting? And they start laughing and go, that's what it takes to be successful. Like, you're hiring me because I showed up in a car that I had washed before I showed up here and socks that I just got from dry cleaning. And I put all this stuff on to show you like how serious I am about actually doing the dirty work. And I think it's that kind of laid back attitude, that laissez-faire kind of attitude in real estate agents that can get you to be an average producer. But if you're going to be an excellent producer, you need to put in hard work, and you need sellers to immediately know how much. Exactly right.
Excellently. If you're going to get excellent results, you have to execute them excellently. So after the listing appointment, I love, like, we've got we're like process and inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, the process, we got to have the mindset. Keep us in the mindset so we'll deliver the process. Love it. Yeah. So a listing appointment ends. Can I send you the paperwork, or when are you ready to list it? How I just tell them, like, they usually, and probably with you, it's like, okay, how do we get started? What are the next steps?
Yeah. Usually,
and then if
I'm going to get the listing, I get it on the spot.
Now,
if I don't, I won't.
Now, I've had a lot of listing appointments, and maybe it's because I'm used to getting them, or I'm like, okay, they're going to hire me, or, sometimes they're not committing right this minute, but I kind of know, just because they don't like to make a decision, or they've committed to another agent. So we leave the listing appointment. Do you have, assuming they have not, even if they have fully committed, what is your follow-up process after the listing appointment?
Yeah, so I'm really laid back about that. That's by design. Mm-hmm. I typically give them as much. I typically check, like, it's during the week, I'll check in during the weekend. Mm-hmm. If it's during the weekend, I'll check in at the end of the following week. But it's very light. It's, hey, just wanted to see if there's anything I can do to help. But it's like nothing. It's simple. It's literally, I'm just pinging them and just seeing what they say. Part of the reason I do that is, and maybe it's just because I really am obsessed with working with people who like me and think I'm valuable. I don't want to try to convince people to work with me. And so I don't use the follow-up as a way to tie people down. I use the follow-up as a way to like legitimately follow up on if they needed more information. And I think it's really refreshing to people to not be sold to by somebody. And so typically if we're going to get it, we get it that week. But when we shake hands and we hug and I tell them, hey, I'll follow up in a few days just to see if you need anything. If you have any questions, let me know. And then I'll send the email, hey, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here if you need me. And then if they don't even respond to that email, I don't send a second. I don't make a phone call, nothing. I don't care if it took me an hour to get prepared, 2 hours for the meeting, an hour after to download with my team. I'm not going to hound them on the listing. It's just totally not my style. And I think there are times that maybe I could be a little bit more aggressive on follow-up, but I like being really light on follow-up. And not that you don't do it, but that you don't send them like 3 emails in a week. Because especially with the clients that I've come to work with.
That smells desperate. That's just...
It smells desperate.
Yeah.
And two, like, I legitimately know what I'm doing, and I made an honest presentation that this is what I think works. Here's why. If someone doesn't feel it, that relationship is totally going to be strained from the beginning. If someone hired me and then they want to be on the front cover of this, San Diego Union Tribune every single Sunday with open houses, like, I'm not the guy. You're not
their agent.
Yeah, I'm not the right dude.
It's not going to be fun to work together. Yeah.
I'm not going to go to Bridge Club and like promote their listing to all the blue hairs. Like that's not my deal. You know what I mean? Right. I'm selling baby boomers houses to millennials. Like that's my whole job in San Diego is because millennials aren't buying $5 million houses that much here, right? They're selling them so they can retire. And then millennials who are involved with the tech industry are buying them. And so I figured that out and then figured out a way to put these two people together. Which is typically modernizing luxury properties and creating a modern look to more traditional homes.
And how do you convince your sellers to do that? I find that can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, that's really tough. I fall back on my really robust marketing budget. I go, look, and I probably shouldn't on a call, but I can get deeper into it with you one-on-one or maybe in the future or something. But I tell them exactly how much I'm going to spend on their listing. Like I go really deep into that stuff. Like I'm going to spend $2,000 on this, $10,000 on that, blah, blah, blah. And it adds up to a big number. And I go, look, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do all this and then pay for the landscaping of your house. It's your product, it's your home. You need to bring it to market. And then I need to put 100% of my budget into marketing. So I don't pay for staging. I don't pay for market preparation. And I really try not to have an argument about whether or not the property should be in spick and span shape. I use how much we do in our marketing as a way to almost maybe guilt them into doing what they need to do too.
You could call it guilt or you could call it ration. It's rational. It's just, if you want this to work and you're hiring me for the formula, this is what it is and this is what it's going to take and your return is going to be tenfold.
Absolutely. Cartier watches have a beautiful marketing campaign, but at the end of the day, someone's going to walk into Cartier and they're going to buy the watch based on how it looks on their arm. And I always tell people all the time, like, look, I'm going to get people to your aisle of shampoo, right? Or your aisle of bar soap or your aisle of toothpaste. What toothpaste they choose has to do with how good your toothpaste is. And what they pay for it has to do with your toothpaste. And you are actually more in control of your sales price than I am. And I, a lot of agents won't admit that. But
you are more in control of your sales price than I am.
Yeah, because it's all market preparation.
So true.
If the property looks amazing and it's awe-inspiring, you can sell it for $500,000 more than the neighbor. Like you can do that. But if I have the best marketing ever and then people are super excited about it because I showed this property that the seller put no attention into in the most incredible light, then they get to the front doorstep and they go, this is not what I expected. They're not going to buy it. Or if they write an offer, they're going to write a really low one. And so I push really hard on that. And I go, look, if I'm going to be doing all of this on marketing, here's a problem you and I are going to have. If I'm going to get 300 people to your house to see it in the next 14 days, how it looks is going to ultimately determine what sales price is going to happen. And if 300 people in our local city saw the property and it doesn't look good, guess how many people they're going to tell? Everyone in the whole city is going to know that this property has, the blinds are falling off the valances are falling off the windows and the landscaping hasn't been tended to in years. what's going to happen is all these buyers are going to run out into their communities. They're going to tell people,
and now when you fix it, it's that much more work to get the message out. So
we lost people.
Question for you. So typically when you take a listing, it sounds like there's a lot of market prep time, which you had mentioned that before. And the other question on top of that is in asking that, when there's a lot of prep time, I would assume you sign a contract with them that you're working together on the front end of that, because I know a lot of agents wait until we go into MLS, but I think what's your process on that?
I try to get it signed immediately. I let my listing manager send it over via DocuSign. Mm-hmm. I don't press super hard, but for sure we don't take the listing before photos. We won't pay for photos until we get the listing signed. Our photography package is like over $1,000 to us. It's very expensive. Mm-hmm. So we just, that kind of money, obviously we wouldn't want to start writing checks like that until after the listing agreement signed. But yeah, market prep's critical. I think, if I have the listing before we start the market prep, that's great. But if they're doing the market preparation and we're moving down that road and I know there's goodwill, I don't totally press them.
Yeah.
I've never been burned on it before, so I guess maybe I'm a little naive. But part of my being laid back about signing contracts and laid back about the comms, it's purposeful. It's meant to show people that I want our relationship to be really pure. I want it to be about us first, and then our task second.
Exactly.
So it might seem like it's laid back, but it's actually totally by design.
Well, you need that kind of relationship with a seller, I think.
Yeah. I always tell people, when we work with buyers, my team represents buyers, sometimes I'll represent buyers, but it's very rare. A buyer cheating on you with another agent or buying something. I'm like, look, if your wife is going to cheat on you, or your husband is going to cheat on you, it doesn't matter if you have a marriage contract. Their infidelity is in their blood, right? It's exactly. That's what it is.
Right.
So for me, I look at the marriage contract and a listing contract as a very similar. We're making a commitment that this relationship is monogamous. Mm-hmm. And so buyers, it's a little more troublesome. With sellers, obviously it's a lot easier. We don't get a lot of buyer brokers signed. And if the listing contract takes a little bit longer, we're completely fine with it. If we know there's red flags, obviously we can go, okay, there's red flags
and then
here.
There's, whether you've got a listing contract or not, there's a conversation that has to be had.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. So I've got 3 more questions for you. Number 1, is there anything else about the listing process that we should know?
Yeah. It's an obvious one, but you always got to say, look, we're going to touch base on price in 21 days. I think it's really important to get that out there. I always tell people when it comes to pricing, we have that conversation. Look, there are 3 things that can happen. We could have underpriced it. We're getting multiple offers. We could have priced it right. And we're going to sell it in 21 days. Or we overprice it and we need to adjust the price. But I always try to let people know it's not a big deal.
And No.
So anytime I deliver news that I know traditionally scares people, there's lots of things in our business that freak people out, right? Like having to do price reductions, getting a repair request from a buyer, getting a negotiation, losing an escrow and having to start all over again. I go, look, these things happen. It's part of the deal. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's really, in the scheme of things, not that big of a deal. In 4 months, we're going to look back and we're going to be laughing about it. And I always try to minimize those things, because I think our job, when I fell down and scraped my knee as a kid, I looked up at my dad, who was a lot more experienced than me. And I looked at his face and I go, if he's freaked out, I'll start crying. If he's not freaked out, I'm not going to freak out.
You have the best analogy, Seth. Exactly.
But it's the same thing. They're looking for us to understand, is this a big deal or not? People want to know that. And so, up front, when I talk about pricing, I go, look, if we price it a little high, it's not a big deal. We do a price reduction. We pick a new price. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we do another price reduction. It's literally how real estate has been done for 100 years. So I like people to know that not a big deal up front, so that people kind of expect that this is not going to be the type of relationship where we're going to freak out on each other. Like, we're going to get through things logically and slowly, and there's going to be stress, but it's not going to elevate. Like, we're going to get through things one step at a time.
So on the 21 days, is it 21 days no matter what the price point?
Yeah, I like to touch base in 21 days regardless of price point. Okay. But obviously, if it's like a $10 million house, which here takes a year plus to sell, no. But, our average sales price is right around $1 million.
Okay.
And so, half is below, half is above. And, for $1 million and under stuff, yeah, if you're not sold in 21 days, like you totally miss the market. There's no properties under $1 million in San Diego that shouldn't sell in 21 days.
Exactly. Well, and in Atlanta, that's probably like that $500,000 mark. And depending on the market within Atlanta, even under $1 million, it's pretty much the same. So, I always ask for a book. Do you have a new favorite book or a book that you would recommend based on our conversation today about the listings, or both?
Yeah, I mean, I have an old book that I always point to, which is Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. Have you read that book?
I have.
Yeah. It's an old school book. It's interesting. I haven't really been good about Audible.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think everyone knows being successful and becoming better at what you do is a lot of education, self-education, reading, the books on tape, that kind of stuff. I've been really bad in the last few years because I've been just so obsessive compulsive over the stuff that we're doing. It's just been filling up all my free time. But Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I have one on my phone. I have the book on my phone. I have a book at my house. I have 2 books in the office, and I gave all my agents books. I like it because it systematizes the process of growth.
Now, do you follow it though? Do you follow it to a T?
No.
Yeah. I tried to follow it to a T, and it wasn't good for me. Well, part of that was the recession at the same time, but I think you've got to figure out. Like, are you the only listing agent on your team, or does everybody on your team list?
The other agents can list, but typically if they list, they bring me the listing. But that's not just because I'm the team leader. It's because if they get a listing, especially an expensive listing, even they're great agents. Mm-hmm. Even they know, they're like, all right, like I'd rather have Seth's experience and brain on this thing. Mm-hmm. And but we are a traditional team in some ways, but not in others. Mm-hmm. I do work with some buyers. I mean, every once in a while, but it's very rare. I try not to do it.
Okay.
I love buyers. I just can't do all the stuff that I do and drive around San Diego all day long. Exactly. It takes an hour and a half to get from one side of the city to the other. Like there's only so much that I can do all day.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I go back to that one. I've always liked that book because it's vanilla. It works. The concepts are important, especially the early chapters where it goes over like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you in real estate?
I need to read that again. Yeah. I don't even remember that part.
The first chapter, like it's almost something like if you wake up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee, you just read the first chapter of that book and read nothing else. It's pretty cool because it reminds you that like, if a boat just goes out into the middle of the ocean, like who knows if it's going to make it to its destination, right? You have to know where you're going. Like like a lot of people's careers are kind of like this because like they don't know. Mm-hmm. And when you're young, that's fine, or you're early in your career, that's fine. But there's something to be said about figuring out where you want to go and then going there. You can't really.
It makes the journey a lot more fun when you know the It's not about what is it? It's not about the journey. It's about the destination. But it's a heck of a journey if it's got a destination, right?
That's exactly right. Exactly. And I'm obsessed with growth. Like I want to be better tomorrow than I was today. I want to be better today than I was yesterday. And so for me, why I like knowing where I'm going is because then I can look back every few weeks and go, wow, what a wonderful feeling. I'm actually a better whatever than I was.
So, or then it is a journey as opposed to just floating around in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think to at our core, I'm someone who's been in the business for 15 plus years. I've sold the same exact address like 10 times. Like, our business is difficult. It's trying, and it does feel like Groundhog Day sometimes. We do the same tasks over and over and over. And so for me, one of the great things about focusing on growth is it gets you out, it breaks you out of that, like just selling real estate to have a living. Yeah. Like I pick things in real estate that I'm truly passionate about, and I go, I'm going to totally just focus on that. Yeah. And it's just, everything else is noise. That's awesome. And once I started going, what's the one thing I want to be amazing at, and then focus on it, it was like, it was amazing. It was like drinking out of a fire hose. Like the business started becoming so prolific. There started being so many clients that were attracted to that because, it's like why people like confident men when they're women, or women, or
vice versa. Yeah.
Or vice versa. Absolutely. I love confident women. Believe me. Let me tell you, my wife is incredibly confident, And it's a very attractive thing because they know who they are and they know what they want. And I think clients are attracted to that too.
Absolutely.
If you walk in, you're just like, I'm just kind of doing this so I can work. And then I like holding open houses. I like the color.
Nobody wants that. Well, Tony Robbins, and we had to wrap this up, but you're so much fun to talk to. But Tony Robbins is a billionaire because he sells confidence. What does he sell? He ultimately he sells confidence, and he's a billionaire for it. And he's selling everyone what they actually already have. He's just getting it out of them. I mean, that's even more, but it's back to what you said. It's confidence. So what is the one thing on the listing presentation that you want everyone listening to this, that you would say, hey, listeners, or that you do say, hey, listeners, there's one thing you need to take away from, if you don't get anything else out of this interview, get this out of it.
The listing presentation is meant to show the seller what you're going to do. And we complicate it, right? So you make this giant about us section of your listing presentation. You make this giant, like, why Sotheby's is number one and why I'm the number one agent in my market and why I sell so many millions of dollars. It's not about you, right? Selling is looking from the other person's side of the conference room table, right? It's looking at what do they need to hear? What do they want to hear? What are they hoping to get out of today? And if you can ask those questions and figure them out, you're really on the way to creating a stellar listing booklet. But you have to create the booklet based on what people want to hear and what they need to hear in order to like make that next step. And so once I started making my listing presentation focused on what people want to hear rather than how great I am, I don't think the listing booklet is supposed to be a way that is an interview. I don't think of it as an interview. I think of it as an education. And so that's part of, so back to your thing. You need to put a marketing checklist in there. You need to tell people what you're going to do to sell their house, and you need to talk to them about it. And those are critically important things. People walk in there all the time and they just shoot from the hip with their marketing campaign. And what immediately happens when you start shooting from the hip, talking about something as serious about how you're going to sell that $1 million house for them, they pretty much immediately know how serious you don't take that listing appointment and how unorganized you are. You know, my checklist is it's like 62 data points. It's like 62. It's a list of 62 things I'm going to do to sell your house, written out in vivid detail. And I hand it to people and I go, by the way, you're going to get an email every single time I do these things. And
that's great. Wish we didn't talk about that. Yeah.
It really works.
How often do you touch base with, I mean, I'm assuming every week, or what's your process once you list?
Probably like 3 to 5 times a week. We'll give them some sort of an update.
Okay.
If it's friends, we're contacting, past clients, we're texting more often. But as far as our regimented stuff that my listing manager manages, we give showing feedback once a week because we want to collect feedback all throughout the week, and they give showing feedback on one day rather than every day. So we give showing feedback on Mondays. And then on Wednesdays to Fridays, somewhere in there, it's a little bit property specific and what we're doing on it. We're giving them an update on what marketing is going out, and we're sending them the pieces. And then also for the stuff we can track, we're showing them what we're doing. So it's really great. Do what you say what you do. You know what I mean? Like it is so simple. You just hold yourself accountable to do things, and people are like blown away because accountability is like a lost art in this business.
You're right. And it's not rocket science.
It's not. You just got to do what you say you're going to do. And by the way, if you keep showing people what you're doing and you get close to that expiration and relisting time, the thing that every listing agent hates is, oh my God, it's been 6 months and the house isn't sold. How do I convince them to stay with me? I know it's going to sell if they just list with me and give me another chance. If you've been communicating with them the whole time, you're going to get the relist. If you haven't been, they're going to think it's time to change brokers.
Exactly.
And that's why communication is so critical. I can't do it on my own. I need to have my listing manager do it because it's too time consuming, but that's a big part of it.
Well, I have the same thing, but it keeps me, we actually have a weekly call because it keeps me in the loop on what's going on. And then she does the update, and I don't know about you, but she does the update and then I review the update before it goes out so that if anything's changed that I know about and vice versa, it's all current and it's good. All right. Well, Seth, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
You rock.
Thank you.